Okay, folks, buckle up because we are going deep today. Really deep.
Yeah, diving into the depths.
We're tackling SOS-tainability, the last call to change, and wow, this book,
It's pretty intense.
no kidding.
Ugh.
It's like straight up, the author saw the planet sending out a giant SOS.
Blinking red alert.
Exactly.
Oh.
And just wrote this whole book as like a final plea to like wake everyone up.
A last-ditch effort.
Totally.
It is fascinating, though, how they use that whole ship in distress metaphor throughout the book.
Oh, yeah.
Like, on the surface, everything seems, kind of okay.
Right, right.
But underneath, cracks, tremors,
Uh-oh.
and a massive, mega storm is brewing.
Yikes.
It really gets the point across about how urgent this is.
Oh, for sure. It's like, you're on this ship and you can like feel the vibrations under your feet.
Yeah.
You look out and like storm clouds are gathering.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the alarm is blaring.
That SOS alarm.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is
Yeah.
to, help you cut through all the noise
Yeah,
and figure out the most important takeaways from this book.
exactly. We don't want to leave people freaking out.
Right. Informed, not freaked out.
Yeah.
So you can, walk away and actually feel like you can do something.
Empowered.
Yes. Empowered, not just overwhelmed by the whole, doom and gloom of it all.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the problems and then feeling like, okay, what can I do?
Exactly. So the book kicks off with like a pretty stark picture of, what's going on with the planet right now.
Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting was it's not just about climate change,
No, it goes beyond that. Definitely.
even though, we all know that's like a huge deal.
Absolutely. The book makes it super clear that climate change, it's happening now.
Right. Not in like 100 years.
Yeah, it's not a future problem.
Like, here's the wildfires, here's the superstorms, here's the crazy heat waves.
Yeah, ecosystems are collapsing too. It's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is. And these aren't just statistics, like some abstract numbers in a report.
Right.
This is real stuff impacting real people.
Yeah. Like, if you live on the coast.
Think about rising sea levels.
Exactly. Or if you're, living in a place where wildfires are happening more and more.
Evacuations.
Yeah, it's serious stuff.
It is. And what's even crazier is, climate change. That's just one piece of this whole puzzle.
Right.
The book gets into biodiversity loss, resource depletion.
Like all that e-waste.
Oh, yeah. Remember that old phone you tossed last year?
Hmm.
Probably part of that, like 1.5 million truckloads of e-waste the book talks about.
Oh, wow.
And they say most of it isn't even recycled right.
That's crazy.
A lot of wasted resources.
Yeah, not just phones, though, right? I mean, we're just consuming everything like crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
across the board, way too much. And what the book argues is that all these problems, they're linked.
Like they're all connected. Yeah, they're symptoms of a much deeper issue, like how our whole system works.
Okay, so we've got climate change, we've got biodiversity loss, we've got resource depletion.
It's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's starting to feel like that ship we talked about is taking on water fast.
And then the book introduces this idea of tipping points.
Yeah, that's when things get really scary.
Like with the Amazon rainforest is huge, right? And it absorbs a ton of CO2, like a giant sponge.
Right.
But because of deforestation, we're getting close to a point where it could flip.
Flip.
Yeah, start releasing more carbon than it takes in,
Oh, no.
which would just make climate change so much worse.
Okay, so it's like we're teetering on the edge of this cliff.
Yeah, and once we go over, there's no coming back,
That's what the book's saying.
basically. And it argues that we're dangerously close to a lot of these tipping points.
A lot.
Like the Greenland ice sheet melting, it's speeding up. And if that whole thing melts, sea levels could rise like over 20 feet.
20.
Yeah, imagine what that would do to coastal communities.
It's almost like those alarm bells on the ship are getting louder and louder.
Yeah, the book, it doesn't sugarcoat things.
It's definitely a wake-up call.
For sure. The message is we're at a critical point and we have to act now.
Okay, so we get it. The situation is serious.
Very serious.
But is there anything we can actually do?
Absolutely. The book isn't all doom and gloom. It does explore solutions and, strategies for a more sustainable future.
Okay, good. Because at this point, I'm kind of feeling like I need a life preserver.
Hold on tight, because that's where we're headed next.
Yep.
The book talks about individual action, community efforts, and how we need to change the whole system.
All right, so let's dive into those solutions and see if we can, steer this ship in the right direction.
Let's do it. So, as we're starting to look at solutions, The book, it really digs into this idea of convenience.
Oh yeah, the hidden cost of convenience.
Exactly. Like, it's something we don't always think about, right?
No, we're all about that, like instant gratification,
Yeah.
online shopping, food delivery, everything's disposable.
Totally.
It's easy to get caught up in how easy it makes things.
Yeah, it's super convenient. But the book, it does a good job of, like, exposing the downside of all that.
The unintended consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Like, take single-use plastics.
Oh yeah.
We use them for everything,
Like
right?
water bottles, straws,
Yeah.
packaging,
And then, poof, gone.
trash.
The book says we produce something like 400 million tons of plastic every year.
400 million.
Yeah, and only a tiny bit of it gets recycled.
So all that plastic we use for like 5 minutes.
Ends up polluting the planet for like centuries.
That's pretty messed up.
Yeah, plastic takes forever to decompose.
So it's not just going to landfills.
No, it's ending up in the ocean,
Hurting marine life.
getting into the food chain.
Not good. And then there's fast fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Another big part of this whole throwaway culture.
Totally. I mean, I love a good deal on clothes, but the book, it really made me think about, like, the impact of all that.
It made me think twice about buying new clothes all the time.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the trends, but the book, it shows how damaging that is, you know?
Like making all those cheap clothes so quickly just to be tossed out a few weeks later.
Yeah, it's a huge strain on the planet's resources.
Remember that stat about the water it takes to make one cotton t-shirt?
Oh, yeah, like 2,700 liters. It's crazy.
Insane. And then where do all those clothes go when we're done with them?
It's not a pretty picture. The book, it says we're basically sending a garbage truck full of textiles to landfills or, burning them every second.
Every second.
Yeah, seriously.
That's hard to wrap my head around.
It's a crazy amount, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the environment, is it?
No, the book talks about the social cost too, like how fast fashion relies on, exploitative labor practices a lot of the time.
Like unfair wages, unsafe working conditions.
Ex-
So we're basically getting these cheap clothes at the expense of, people in other countries.
Yeah, makes you wonder what the real cost is.
Definitely. So it's clear, our current way of consuming things,
Yeah.
it's not going to work long term.
No, not at all.
But what can we do about it? The book, it doesn't just leave us hanging, does it?
No, definitely not. It talks about a lot of solutions.
Okay, good.
Like one big one is shifting to a circular economy.
A circular economy. Remind me what that is again?
So basically, it's about moving away from this linear model we have now,
Like take, make, waste.
Exactly. A circular economy, it's about keeping resources in use for as long as possible.
Okay.
So designing things to last longer, making them easier to repair,
Okay.
and making sure we can, recycle and reuse materials.
So instead of just using things up and throwing them away, we find ways to, like, loop them back into the system.
Yeah, close the loop. That way we're not constantly using up new resources.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
But it also means we need to consume less in the first place.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Reducing consumption, it's crucial. Like, it's not just about making things recyclable, it's about using less overall.
So less is more.
Exactly. We need to shift away from this more mentality.
Like enough is enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's about making choices about what we buy, using what we already have, and maybe focusing more on experiences instead of just stuff.
Like appreciating what we have instead of always wanting more.
Exactly. The book, it actually has a bunch of tips for how to reduce consumption.
Oh, like what?
Well, like planning your purchases, avoiding those impulse buys,
Okay. Yeah.
buying secondhand stuff whenever you can.
Drifting.
Yeah. And learning how to repair things instead of just tossing them.
It's so easy to just buy a new one, though.
I know, but the book really encourages us to, pause and think about the impact of our choices.
Like before we click buy now, ask ourselves if we really need it.
Exactly. And it's not about, depriving ourselves or anything. It's just about making more mindful choices.
Living more sustainably without feeling like we're missing out.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about consuming less and moving towards a circular economy.
Two big ones.
What else does the book say we can do? What about individuals? Like, what can we do in our own lives?
Well, the book is actually big on individual action.
Really?
Yeah, it might feel like our choices don't make a big difference, but the book makes a strong case for why they actually do.
I think it's easy to feel like, oh, what can I do? This problem is so huge.
Right, exactly.
But the book seems to say that if enough people make small changes, it can actually add up.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's about the collective impact. The book talks about this ripple effect.
Like how even small actions, if enough people do them,
Yeah, they can lead to real change.
Like that example about food waste in the UK. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
If every household cut their food waste by just 10%,
It would be the same as taking 2 million cars off the road.
it's amazing how these little things can add up.
Right. And the book is full of practical tips for how to reduce our impact in our daily lives.
So what are some things we can start doing, like today?
Well, for energy, easy things like switching to LED light bulbs,
Oh, yeah.
unplugging electronics when you're not using them,
Makes sense.
and, getting energy-efficient appliances.
Right, right. And we should also think about, like, heating and cooling,
Oh, definitely.
like wearing a sweater instead of cranking up the heat.
Yeah, or using fans instead of always relying on AC.
Exactly. And what about transportation?
Well, obviously, walking, biking, or taking public transit whenever possible.
Those are the best options.
Yeah, but if you have to drive, carpooling or ride sharing can help.
And if you're getting a new car, think about electric or hybrid.
Yeah, definitely worth considering. And we can't forget about water.
Oh, right.
Taking shorter showers,
Yeah.
fixing leaky faucets.
Watering the lawn less.
All those little things add up.
Yeah. And we can choose appliances that use less water, too.
Like washing machines and dishwashers.
Yeah.
It all makes a difference.
Right.
But it's not just about what we do on our own. The book also stresses collective action,
Like working together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And using our voices to advocate for change.
So what can we do to be part of that?
Well, the book talks about supporting organizations that are working to protect the environment,
Okay.
advocating for policies that promote sustainability,
Great.
and of course, voting for candidates who, actually prioritize these issues.
Right. Using our votes to make a difference.
Exactly. And we can start conversations with people we know, like friends and family.
Well, that's a good one.
Just sharing information, encouraging people to make changes.
Yeah. Spread the word.
It's all about creating a culture of sustainability.
Making it the norm.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and speaking of culture, I remember the book had a whole chapter on education.
Yeah, the role of education in creating a more sustainable world.
It was pretty interesting.
What's fascinating is it talks about teaching kids about environmental issues from a really young age.
Like start early.
Yeah, so they grow up, caring about the planet.
It makes sense.
And then colleges and universities, they play a huge role too.
Oh, so.
Well, they can do research, develop new solutions.
Right. And then they're training the next generation of, leaders and change makers.
Exactly. And even in workplaces, teaching employees about sustainability can be really helpful.
Yeah, so they can understand their impact and, contribute to the company's goals.
It's about making sustainability a core part of everything we do, not just something we think about once a year.
So it's not just a trend, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about consuming less, moving towards a circular economy, individual action, collective action, and education.
It's a lot.
It is. But I feel like there's another important piece here that we haven't talked about yet.
That's it.
Well, it's not just about saving the planet. It's also about, making sure everyone benefits from these solutions.
Oh, right. You're talking about climate justice.
Exactly.
Yeah, the book gets into that too. It's about recognizing that climate change and, environmental problems, they don't affect everyone equally.
Right. It's often the poorest communities that are hit the hardest.
Exactly, even though they haven't contributed as much to the problem.
So it's not just about, saving polar bears and rainforests.
Yeah.
It's about protecting the people who are most vulnerable.
Exactly. And climate justice, it's about making sure those communities have a say in the solutions.
That they're part of the process.
Yeah, and that they actually benefit from the changes we're making.
So it's about creating a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely. The book talks about how developed countries have a responsibility to help developing countries,
To deal with climate change and transition to clean energy.
Yeah, exactly. Like providing financial assistance, technology, and, helping them build capacity.
It's about global solidarity.
Yeah, recognizing that we're all in this together.
Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the dire warnings to the power of individual action to this whole idea of climate justice.
It's been a journey.
It really has. And in the book, I think it does a really good job of tying all these things together,
It paints a very comprehensive picture.
Yeah. But before we wrap up, I want to get your thoughts on one more thing from the book that really stood out to me.
Okay.
It's this idea of the SOS mindset.
Ah, yeah, that's a good one.
It really resonated with me.
So the SOS mindset, as the book describes it, it's about going beyond just awareness.
Okay.
It's about taking action.
So it's not enough to just know about the problems. We have to do something.
Exactly. It's about feeling that urgency, that sense of responsibility,
Right.
and not letting fear or, apathy hold us back.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not about guilt-tripping ourselves.
No, definitely not.
It's about feeling empowered to actually make a difference.
Exactly. And the book has a lot of tips for how to, cultivate that mindset.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we shift from just knowing about the problems to actually doing something?
Well, one big thing is to really connect with your values.
Like, what do I care about?
Yeah, what matters to you? Why do you care about sustainability? What kind of world do you want to live in?
When you put it that way, it seems pretty obvious.
Right. When you're clear about your
Yeah.
values, it's easier to make choices that align with them.
Makes sense.
So ask yourself, what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind?
I like that.
And then start making choices that reflect that.
Okay, so connect with your values. What else?
Well, it's also important to set, realistic goals.
Yeah, because it's easy to feel overwhelmed, right? Like, the problem's so huge, where do I even start?
Exactly. So instead of trying to do everything at once,
Right.
pick one or two things you can realistically commit to.
Okay.
Maybe it's cutting down on plastic or, eating less meat.
Or biking to work one day a week.
Exactly. Start small and build from there.
Small steps. I like it.
And don't forget to celebrate your wins.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to get discouraged, so it's important to, acknowledge the progress you're making.
Exactly. A little positive reinforcement can go a long way.
Totally.
And the book, it also talks about connecting with other people.
Like finding your tribe.
Yeah, finding people who share your values.
People who get it.
It's so much easier to stay motivated when you have that support,
Yeah, it's like you're not alone in this.
Exactly. So, join a local environmental group,
Okay.
volunteer for something,
Okay.
or just start conversations with your friends about this stuff.
Spread the word.
Exactly. It's all about building a network, a community.
Creating that ripple effect.
Right. Oh, and we can't forget about the power of stories.
Stories.
Yeah, the book talks about how sharing our own stories, like why we care about sustainability, it can be really inspiring to others.
Oh, I like that.
Stories, they have this power to connect with people on an emotional level.
Yeah, it's not just about the facts and figures.
It's about the human side of things.
Sharing our experiences, our hopes, our fears.
Exactly. So don't be afraid to, share your own journey.
Be vulnerable.
Yeah, you never know who you might inspire.
That's a good point. Okay, so we've got connect with your values, set achievable goals, find your community, and share your stories.
It's a good start.
What else does the book say about cultivating the SOS mindset?
Well, it also mentions the importance of gratitude.
Gratitude for sustainability.
I know, it might seem kind of strange, but the book says that when we appreciate the beauty of nature,
Okay.
it helps us feel more connected to it, more responsible for protecting it.
So like taking time to appreciate the trees, the ocean, the birds.
Exactly. The book suggests things like spending time in nature.
Oh, yeah, that's always good for the soul.
Right. Noticing the small things, like the way the light filters through the leaves.
Yeah.
And expressing appreciation to people who are working to protect the environment.
Okay, I like that.
It's about shifting our perspective,
Yeah, appreciating what we have.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that sustainability, it's a journey.
It's not a destination.
Right. There's no finish line.
We're never going to be perfectly sustainable.
Exactly. It's a process of learning, growing, and, trying to make better choices.
So we shouldn't beat ourselves up if we mess up sometimes.
No, definitely not.
Just keep learning, keep trying.
Yeah. And celebrate the progress you make.
Every little bit counts.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think we've explored this SOS mindset pretty thoroughly.
We have.
And I hope we've given our listeners some good ideas for how to, actually take action.
I think so. And it's important to remember, this isn't about feeling guilty or bad.
No.
It's about empowerment, about hope.
Yeah, like we all have the power to make a difference.
Exactly. And when we work together,
We can create real change.
absolutely. It's not about waiting for someone else to fix things.
It's about taking responsibility
Exactly. We all
Yeah.
need to step up and do what we can.
right here, right now.
Yes.
Okay, so we've gone from the planet's SOS signal to this empowering SOS mindset.
We have.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, there's one more question I keep coming back to.
What's that?
If our current economic model, the one based on just endless growth and consuming more and more, if that's not sustainable,
Right.
What does a truly sustainable future look like?
Big question.
It is. Like, what needs to change on a bigger level,
Yeah.
you know, to create a world where both people and the planet can thrive?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? The book doesn't really have a simple answer, but it does point to a few key areas where things need to change.
So it's saying that, like, recycling and driving less and stuff, that's great.
Yeah,
But it's not enough on its own. We need bigger changes.
exactly. And one thing the book talks a lot about is how we define progress.
How we define progress.
Yeah, like right now we're so focused on economic growth.
GDP, the stock market, all that.
Right. But the book argues that this obsession with economic growth is actually causing a lot of the problems we're facing.
Mm. It's like we're stuck on this treadmill,
Yeah.
always running faster, trying to produce more, consume more,
But it's not really making us happier or healthier.
and it's definitely not making the planet healthier.
That's the thing. The book suggests that we need a different way to measure progress.
A new definition.
Yeah, one that takes into account social well-being,
Okay.
environmental health, even, spiritual fulfillment.
So it's about looking at the bigger picture.
Exactly. True progress. It shouldn't just be about money.
It should be about creating a world where everyone can thrive.
Exactly. And the book actually talks about some places that are already doing this.
Really?
Yeah, they're focusing on well-being and happiness instead of just economic growth.
That's interesting. So there are examples of what a different future could look like.
Yeah, and the book also stresses the importance of dealing with inequality.
Inequality.
Yeah, like both within countries and between countries.
Because we've talked about how the impacts of climate change, they aren't evenly distributed.
Right.
The poorest communities often get hit the hardest.
Exactly. And the book argues that we can't have a truly sustainable future if we don't address these injustices.
So it's about connecting the dots between environmental issues and social justice issues.
Exactly. They're all linked.
And reducing inequality, that's not just about fairness, it's actually crucial for sustainability.
That's right. When people are just struggling to survive,
Yeah.
they don't have the time or resources to worry about being sustainable.
It makes sense. If you're worried about putting food on the table, you're probably not thinking about your carbon footprint.
Exactly. So a more equitable society is a more sustainable society.
Okay.
And then the book also talks about this need to shift our values away from consumerism.
Oh, consumerism, that whole buy more stuff mentality.
Yeah. Our culture is so obsessed with material possessions and instant gratification.
It's true. We're always bombarded with messages that we need to buy more to be happy.
Right. But the book challenges that idea.
So it's not about having the newest phone or the biggest house.
No. The book says that real happiness and fulfillment come from somewhere else.
Like experiences.
Yeah. Relationships, community, our connection to nature.
It's about finding joy in simpler things.
Exactly. Appreciating what we have. And the book also talks about the importance of education.
Education.
Yeah, we need to be teaching kids about sustainability from a young age.
So they grow up with these values.
Exactly. And we need to be celebrating the successes.
Like the good news stories.
Yeah, the people and communities who are already making a difference.
Because that can inspire us.
Exactly. It shows us that change is possible. It gives us hope.
So we've got rethink how we define progress,
Yeah.
reduce inequality, shift our values, educate the next generation.
And celebrate the good stuff that's already happening.
It's a lot to take in,
It is.
but it does feel hopeful. Like there's a way forward, even if it's going to be challenging.
Yeah, the book is honest about the challenges, but it's not all doom and gloom. It reminds us that we have the power to create a better future.
If we work together.
Exactly.
So what's your final takeaway for our listeners today?
I hope they'll embrace that SOS mindset we talked about.
Right.
Connect with your values, set realistic goals, find your community, share your stories, be grateful for what we have, and never stop learning.
That's a great message. And remember, the future isn't set in stone. We're all creating it together.
One step at a time.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into SOS-tainability. We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
Yeah, and empowering.
Exactly. Remember, the future's in our hands, and together, we can create a world where everyone and everything can thrive.
Until